Yeah, the media going crazy for Kamala. But what is Kamala's actual record? What has she done with her life? What has she done in all of her public service? Let's talk to someone who knows well. Harmeet Dhillon is here. She's the founder of the Dhillon Law Group, an attorney for President Trump and the Trump campaign as well. Harmeet, always good to have you with us. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So there's the press, of course, is in the midst of giving Kamala Harris a glow up right now. Oh, she's wonderful. She's just the best. She likes to dance and sing and all these things. But what is Kamala Harris's actual record in your view?
Well, I've lived here in San Francisco since before she was elected as district attorney. And, it all started out good, sunshine and roses, because she was running against her boss, which is, by the way, a theme here, running against her boss, a terrible district attorney, as the tough on crime prosecutor. And so she made all these promises to voters. Most of the Republicans in the city actually voted for her because she was the more conservative candidate in the race. And her first big case was the case of Isaac Espinoza, a cop who was shot by gang bangers in our city. He was 29 years old, had a beautiful family. And Kamala Harris's first big act is to have a press conference with the chairman of the Police Officers Union and announce that she's not going to seek the death penalty in this absolutely heinous case. And so everyone was shocked by that, and it kind of went downhill from there. So over her time as DA, she presided over gross violations of due process involving 600 cases, plus being tossed out, dismissed actually after verdicts because of violations of her disclosure obligations. Her tenure as an attorney general is no better. It's been widely panned, including by liberals like Dean of Berkeley Law School, Erwin Chemerinsky, and The Atlantic, as really just juvenile and shocking arguments violating civil rights of prisoners and, disobeying court orders, ignoring pedophilia amongst priests, ignoring sex trafficking, human trafficking in our state. And so basically Kamala Harris, if you were to boil it down, is a naked opportunist who will say and do anything to get ahead and who's always looking for the next job. As soon as she gets the job, that's the next rung on her ladder. And do you really want someone like that as our president, who has a very poor record of accomplishment,
Yes.
who has been boosted by the media, who has really, she lied in her press conference, her opening foray a couple of days ago, saying she's like the top cop and she's gone after murderers and this and that. Her record is very different than that.
Seems to be kind of all over the place, too, in a reckless way when it comes to criminal justice. So in some sense, she's very weak on crime in all the ways that you talked about, including her support for the Minneapolis Bail Fund, which bailed out all sorts of awful people with her support. And then additionally, I recall that story that Tulsi Gabbard brought up on stage, that she prevented a court from even considering DNA evidence that would have exonerated a man on death row. What the hell is that? So she becomes aware that this man may be wrongfully on death row, and she prevents his getting a chance to have that heard in a fair trial?
Yeah, her argument of her office was, even if this person is innocent, he has waited too long to make that claim. And again, I'm a conservative and we're, hard on crime, but first principles are the United States Constitution.
Yes.
And people are entitled to due process. Even criminals, even convicted criminals are entitled to due process and equal protection. And this man didn't get that from the California justice system. And, even many conservative attorneys general, when faced with a set of facts, would say, we may have gotten this wrong. I don't want this death on my hands, and I need to reopen this case. That's the correct thing to do. And people have to understand that the job of a prosecutor is not to get convictions. It's to do justice. And that means sometimes you have to drop a case where you don't have the facts. And so her bloodthirsty desire to rack up wins on the board, no matter what the facts are, is truly disgusting. And it's incredible that the liberal media has just papered that over. I mean, I think there are quite a few progressives who are turning against her, not for that, because people have forgotten these are 20 years of malfeasance, but because of, being too close to Israel. Shockingly enough, they think she's not hard enough on Israel, so she's all over the place on that today. As you know, she's boycotting the address of Benjamin Netanyahu in favor of some frivolous frolic and detour. So she tries to have it always, and that just demonstrates her complete lack of of a core. There are no core values there.
One of the features of her times in Washington has been that nobody likes working for her, and that they have to work overtime in order to accommodate her inadequacy. She's not. She doesn't do the work. She doesn't actually read her briefing materials, and she shows up to meetings unprepared. And then when she fails in those meetings, she hurts the people who work for her for the outcome, which is typical of tyrannical bosses. That has been the way she is in Washington. Was she like this in California too, to your knowledge?
Yeah, there was definitely turnover. She's like, I've told the story of how from time she was running for district attorney on up, she never entered a room without an entourage. There was always like one person holding her purse, holding her phone, holding her notes. She could never had the confidence like so many politicians to just walk into a room, sit down, own the room, have a real conversation with people. She always had to have props and people around her. And I think, that's led to quite a few people not liking to work for her because she's heavily reliant on staff and she doesn't treat them very well. So, and I mean, to be fair, some of the turnover in the White House I've heard has to do with, the president's team assigning her, not the best staff, and there being frustration with that. So she was set up in a way over there. Not that I'm feeling sorry for her, but I think it's going to be a problem. And so it is very impressive how unified the media and the left have been in completely screwing over all of their voters and installing this puppet as the top of their ticket. But I hope some people have the honesty and the patriotism to step forward and tell the facts about Kamala Harris, because they're not pretty. No,
they're not pretty at all. What do you think of this media effort? It was kind of interesting after President Trump obviously succeeded in that debate, and more importantly for this case, Joe Biden self-immolated on that stage. The press all turned in unison against him until they chased him out of the race. And now Kamala Harris comes in, and they're doing a big whitewashing effort on some of the biggest things that were in her portfolio as vice president, in particular the border, saying, the border really wasn't her thing. She was never the border czar. She had only a limited exposure to the border problem. What do you make of all of this?
Yeah, I mean, whitewashing, literally. They're actually going back and revising websites to erase facts. There's a website out there that ranked her as the most liberal senator in the United States Senate before she became the vice president. And that was erased from the internet earlier today. So, we need to quickly archive this stuff and not let them memory hole it. And, let's have it out. Let's hear about those accomplishments, not the rhetoric, not the canned teleprompter speech. Why don't you tell us, Kamala Harris, some of the criminals you put away personally? What are the cases you handled? What about the cop killer? What about the pedophile priests? What about the human traffickers? What about the people you locked up for low-level offenses so you could claim you had a hard-on-crime record? What about screwing over the actually innocent convicted people? These are huge problems for her and for the Democrats, and it's our job as conservatives to make sure they are known.
Harmeet Dhillon, one of Kamala Harris's problems is getting off teleprompter, very much in some ways like Joe Biden. When she is in candid moments, she's at her worst. She starts talking about Venn diagrams and school buses. Will we see her do that in this campaign, or do you expect that she's going to be only allowed to do very tightly controlled teleprompter-based events?
Yeah, I mean, given her word salad fiascos over the years, but what's funny, Vince, is, one of her dumbest phrases is the one about being unburdened by what has been. Mm-hmm. That wasn't a word salad snafu. That's actually somebody wrote that out and she's repeated it dozens of times. So her speech writers hate her or are really stupid. But yeah, if you look at how the Democrats ran the COVID campaign of Joe Biden, sleepy Joe Biden,
right?
They didn't let him, sort of flail around in uncontrolled circumstances, and she's not going to do it either. So, but if Democrat journalists, liberal journalists, want to do their jobs and want to do some actual journalism, they'll insist on one-on-ones with her and put her to the test. She is not capable of standing up to it. Her record is not one of accomplishment. It's one of advancement, color by numbers. It's getting ahead and looking for the next job and being assisted to that job by a compliant media and Democrat establishment. Let me tell you, your voters, your listeners may not understand this, but in California, It is so controlled by the left that you basically have to have the permission of kingmakers to advance to the next level. And she's been the beneficiary of that system throughout. I mean, there was a question when Gavin was running for governor, whether she was going to run for governor against him, and the kingmaker decided it was Gavin's turn to do that, and Kamala got a different prize. And so that's literally how things are done here. So that means no competition, no real, sharp elbows. The path has always been cleared for her, and that's what's happening now.
Yes.
And it's our job to make sure that's not what happens at the end of the day on Election Day.
And what that means is, in a world coming up with Democrat machine politics, you never really have to be that talented at actually speaking to voters or even listening to them. All you have to do is just impress the right people, and you move along.
Quite the contrary. The single-party system here in California has led to increasingly buffoonish, incompetent people getting elected to office. The unions control California, the teachers union, the SEIU, the workers, the state workers. And the job of elected official here is becoming increasingly mediocre, and it's very frustrating for those of us who live here. I hope that we have finally hit rock bottom here and we start to bounce back as a state. But imagine if the product of this terrible hackneyed system becomes the president. That means that everyone in the United States can look forward to our California bottom of the barrel politics becoming the national norm. America cannot afford that.
No, not at all. All right, Harmeet Dhillon, thank you as always, founder of the Dhillon Law Group and an attorney for President Trump and the Trump campaign. Always nice to chat with you. Thank you.